Welcome to a combined special edition of Fun and Fundraising and Success with Style podcast. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and I'm joined by my very special co-host today, Mr. Lance Avery Morgan.
Good afternoon, everyone. And we have joining us the Lela Rose, the inimitable, the fashionable, the always chic, Texas native, Dallas raised Lela Rose. Hi, Lela. Welcome today.
Well, thank you all so much for having me on. I'm quite excited to be here.
We are too. You're in town. You're actually in Austin for a very special purpose. You are receiving a Texas Medal of Arts Award by the Texas Cultural Trust, which is a big deal. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I have to say, I'm so honored to be getting that award and just thrilled. So I don't normally get such distinguished awards.
Well, you deserve to get such distinguished awards. Are you kidding? Your style and your fashion and designs are incredible. So I can't think of anyone more deserving.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, that's sweet of you.
And I've worked with the nominating process for years with the Texas Cultural Trust folks, and I know that you have been on the list for years. So it's about darn time, and you've done so many great things in your career. I mean, from fashion design to you're an author, you're about to release your second book. We've got lots of fun stuff to cover.
Well, I do have a lot of stuff going on, and I like it that way. I love a little chaos.
The hardest working woman in fashion is what I'll call you. That's for sure.
I'm not so sure about that, but
well, tell us, how did it all begin? You're Dallas raised. What inspired you to go down the fashion, to create your own fashion line? And I know your mom, Dee Dee, is super duper stylish. I think she's a super lovely person. So I'm sure it's part genetic and part hard work, but we'd love to learn more about your story.
Well, so I grew up with an unbelievable mother and an unbelievable father, both very creative, but in totally different ways. And I just think that, they exposed me to so much and so many things in the arts. And I just grew up a very creative child. I'd love to tell people I was probably the least academic person that you've likely had on the show. I graduated third in my class from high school, from the bottom.
Oh,
that was my dad's favorite cocktail party joke. So pretty much I didn't really have academic choices to go into different fields. That I was just much more creative and entrepreneurial, and just always have been, and really have loved that.
I think that's awesome. I have a term for that. It's called gentleman's bees. Because I couldn't get into the top university. Now I had gentleman's bees. I wasn't the top 5%. So I totally get where you're coming from.
No, I was the bottom 3%.
Well, I think what that goes and says, though, Lela, is that, you can be a success no matter, what your skill set. You really have to find something that really speaks to you and allows you to thrive and soar. So tell us a little bit about how you got into, your path to, success and creativity, and kind of how you initially got started in the creative field, all the way to, how you created your first fashion line and from then on.
Well, so I was truly always kind of creating businesses when I was younger, starting with the, typical lemonade stand. And I definitely had a few of those, but I was always trying to figure out how to make something that people would like. And so I'd started, I did these very small, like little businesses doing kind of one of a kind painted t-shirts in high school. And then when I went off to college, I learned how to sew. My mother says it was probably the worst experience, worse than childbirth for her, was teaching me how to sew. And then I started this business when I was in college, making these one of a kind. It sounds just so hideously terrible now, but I like to think it was chic back then, but not so sure it really was. But I was making these one of a kind vests from scarves from the 40s or 50s that I would collect from vintage stores, and then cut them up and, piece them together. My dad and I would sit in the garage and we would drill holes in Monopoly game pieces, and those were my buttons. And I sold these vests to stores. Like, I went to school in Boulder, Colorado. We had a store there that put them, all in the window. We sold to Fred Siegel in LA. I sold to like a little store in Dallas. I think I probably had 6 or 7 stores that were carrying this little line of these one of a kind vests. And I just got this, just, okay, I'm going to go into fashion. I was a sculpture and painting major in college, but just decided that I loved working in fabrics and I just loved kind of creating pieces. And so then graduated from University of Colorado and then moved up to New York and went to Parsons in fashion design. And then just worked and worked and then decided I was going to go be an entrepreneur again and started my company in 1998.
Isn't
Wow, so
that something?
25, so it's your 25th anniversary this year. Congratulations.
You know what? I keep telling people it's 23 years because again, I was no good at math.
Oh.
And the pandemic,
So,
right?
yeah. And like, well, no, I don't even count that against, I'm so terrible at math. And I'm like, oh, I think it's around like 23 years. So thanks for clarifying that.
Oh,
Maybe
that's
we
a
should
scream.
celebrate
We
25
do. We
Right.
got to get you
years.
some. We got to get you some nice silver pieces. Maybe you can come out with a silver line of some sort to commemorate the anniversary.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a who. Well, I love that you were sustainable before sustainable was sustainable.
Well, I'm pretty careful with that term sustainable because it's very hard to be truly sustainable in
Right.
fashion when you're constantly, coming out with new products. But we do a lot of upcycled pieces and really fun one of a kind things and we just always kind of try to keep things interesting, doing something new.
Well, I tell you what, anyone who has seen anyone wear your dresses or gowns, even your little white dress, which I love that you've given the little black dress a life of its own as a little white dress. I mean, they're really exquisite. They're happy, they're fresh, they're colorful, they're charming. Tell us about your inspiration these days for what you're designing.
I have always said that we're a brand that is so much about entertaining, and our customer is, a woman who has a calendar filled with events. And I have always said, I love the idea of matching my drink to my dress and my dress to my table. So I am constant, and the way that we do our shows is really creating an event, which is where it's kind of my fantasy of where you would wear these clothes.
Mhm.
So we're constantly serving you some fabulous drink that's in the theme of the show and some food that kind of matches it and that's very quirky and fun. And I think, that concept of how do you entertain and bring everything, kind of all of those details together is something that constantly inspires me.
Well,
think
and it
that's
sounds like
a great word.
that passion, and it really comes through in your voice when you talk about it. That really leads us to your latest and newest project, which is your book, Fresh Air Affairs. And I think that would you care to elaborate a little bit on the book and what inspired you to create it?
Sure. So this is our second book with Rizzoli, and I'm so excited. It's publishing date is March 7th.
Mhm.
And I love to entertain. I love to entertain through fashion, through food, through everything. And so this was the book that kind of came out of, I wouldn't say it came out of the pandemic, but I love to also be outside. And the pandemic was a time that you really obviously had to spend so much time
Mhm.
if you were going to see anyone outside and entertaining that way. But even prior to that, all of our shows, my favorite shows that we ever put on are the ones that are outdoors and you kind of like, you just have the magic of your surroundings and
Mhm.
what is the sunlight going to do when, the sun goes down and the stars. And it just, there's so much magic with, I think, being outdoors. And this book is really about celebrating that. And how do you use a field of wildflowers to really inspire you? Or, you know, it's just all of these fabulous kind of outdoor events and kind of matched with, the clothing and the food and everything is, all the details really go together. I don't know if anyone ever notices all the details that we do, but I certainly like to point them out.
Well,
Which is great to be able to do in a book too.
Well, it is. And it's interesting how you bring up, there's, I think outdoors, you have to be able to kind of roll with things a little more than with an event indoors, meaning the elements can lead to let's say, for lack of a better word, unexpected things happening.
For sure.
What's your piece of advice that you would give to somebody, who's maybe a little anxious to do an
Well,
event
no one
outdoors?
ever likes what I say here. And Karen Katz, who, was the CEO of Neiman's for a long time,
Yep,
Right.
finally, one season came to me and she was like, "What's up with you and Mother Nature?" And I was like, "What do you mean, Karen?" She's like, "Somehow you always get a glorious day for your shows and you are always outside." And I was like, "I know." And she goes, "What's your plan B?" And I said, "Oh, plan B is for plan A to work."
I love it. Take no prisoners advice. I think that's
So
genius.
certainly not very reassuring to someone who has a lot of anxiety over this. I always just kind of feel like, oh, it'll be fine. And if it's not, we'll just, open up some umbrellas and we'll be fine. We'll just figure it out. And for some reason, we have been burned a few times, but not really that many for as many times as we've thrown caution to the wind and just said, we're doing this outside, no plan B.
I love it. Well, what's so great is that, being a Texan, Texans love to entertain. Tell us about your experience of growing up in Texas and how has that influenced what you create both with fashion and your entertaining sensibility. Can you share some insight about that?
Sure. So my mother, who you mentioned earlier, I mean,
Mhm.
she has fantastic taste and style. She loved to cook when I was growing up, and she was always making something fairly adventurous. None of my friends were ever eating whatever my mom was cooking at home. And I really loved just kind of being involved, like being in the kitchen,
Mhm.
seeing whatever she was creating and all of these different flavors. And for some reason, I've always linked entertaining with, well, I know why, but I've always linked it with like all this glamour and clothing and beauty and this
Mhm.
sparkle and magic. And I just constantly loved that world. And I feel like we're entertainers as much as, I'm a designer, but I love to entertain. I
Mhm.
love to cook. I love to bring all of these senses together. And for me, I just see it as one world. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's
So
that's really cool. So what's interesting in hearing you talk about it, and this is the next question I want to ask you is, so you use entertaining really as a way, it feels like, to drive your brand. Tell me how much events really drive your overall brand and drive increased sales and drive your business as a whole.
I think they're completely linked. And again, our customer is a woman who she is the guest of, or she is the, hostess, the best
Mhm.
hostess. She is constantly doing things, and we're constantly trying to give her not only what to wear, but ideas of like how to make your events even that much more special and that much
Mhm.
more detailed and that much more interesting. And, through the book and the recipes that we have in there, but also the ideas of how do you match your drink to your dress and your dress to your table and just make everything. For me, this is just so much fun. I love coming up with details and love coming up with like new ideas and ways to kind of match it with whatever I'm wearing, whatever I'm telling my guests to wear. And so I do think our brand really is driven as much by fashion as it is by kind of creating these fantasies of how you're entertaining with fashion.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let me ask, so speaking of branding, do you have a piece of sage advice that you would lend to our listeners and followers who are creative entrepreneurs who are looking to start their own brand? Any sort of hard knock tales that you can share or any insight that you'd like to share with our folks?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously an extremely tough industry,
Mhm.
but I would say two things have really helped us in succeeding to whatever degree that we have succeeded. I think persistence and just really having a passion for what you do and just deciding, I'm going to do it no matter what, and just keep at it, and one foot in front of the other all the time. And that is not an easy thing to do
Right.
by any stretch of the mind. And the other thing about building a brand, and I think that, we as a company and I as a designer, we've always been very consistent with what our brand is about, who we are, and we're not trying to be all things to all people. And that's, I think when you're starting out, it's very hard because people are kind of giving you advice and suggestions and saying, try it this way and try that. And how about you look a little, this is more on trend for right now. But do trends really matter? I don't really think to your core customer that they do. I think your core customer comes to you because they love what you do, and you just keep doing that and getting better at it and keeping that interesting and exciting and changing, but not changing what your vision and passion and drive is and what your look is. And I think that it's really important to kind of stay in your lane and do what you do. And no matter whether that's hot at the moment or not, it doesn't really matter.
That's really interesting, because it's when I hear that, I think of a conversation that I had, and this is full circle as to why you're in Austin right now. Heidi Marquez Smith, who, we were talking about, events and, the whole point of talking about how people feel. And, with a brand, you're right. People won't necessarily care one way or another where you go if they're loyal to you, because you make them feel some level of joy and happiness with what you do and what you create, that they're going to follow you along so long as you're on the highway. You don't have to be in the same lane per se, but so long as you're on the same highway going to that destination, they're willing to go along with you with the journey if you create a strong feeling and a strong sense of positiveness,
Right.
that associates with you and your brand.
Right. I would totally agree with that. And I think our customers, the ones that love our clothes, they really love wearing them. And I think that, our clothes are typically very colorful. They're very fun. They're very happy. And it's so much about who the brand is. And we're always looking to be gracious and entertaining and have fun, because if it's not fun, what is the point of doing it? Or at least for me, that's how I've always felt.
Amen to that. I agree 1,000%. And you're known to be a great entertainer. I've seen so many great pieces on you in the media with your own entertaining talents in New York and Wyoming and everywhere you are. With Fresh Air Flowers, and it will be a success. We love dealing with Rizzoli. Pam Summers is a dear friend. We love working with them. As you progress, do you see a whole bunch of more entertaining books in your future as you progress?
I don't know. Books do take so long to do, and but they're so much fun. Knowing me, we'll do something. We'll do another book soon.
Awesome.
If anyone on my team is listening, they might die hearing me say that. We just opened up a store in Jackson Hole as well. And
great.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on with that, and a lot going on with the book, and of course a lot going on with our 3 different divisions. But it's fun to always kind of come up with these ideas and concepts and just do it in a different way. And
Absolutely.
I think that entertaining really does bring kind of this different element to our brand, but it's also just so authentic to who I am as a person and as a designer.
You bet. And I think that when you chronicle it in a book, it lasts forever, as you well know. So that moment is always with you, that you spent so much time doing.
There's a few photos in there that I was like, ooh, not my favorite photo of me. Why? What was I thinking? And then I'm like, great, this is lasting forever.
Well, you could almost tie that to entertaining and events, because my opinion is that there's no such thing as the perfect event, because if you try to create one, if it's not perfect, how do you learn and how do you grow? So if there's always things you want to change, I think that's really a good thing.
Perfection is never my goal. Fun is my goal. And I think perfection kind of sucks some of the fun out of it, to tell you the truth. I love those magical moments when something does kind of go wrong, or the wind is blowing too much, but
like last night at the VIP party.
Yes, there was a lot of wind, but there's just something so magical about being in the elements and being in nature, and you can't control it, and you don't really know exactly what's going to happen. but it just creates this whole level of drama that, is out of your control. And there's really something, I think, so fun about that and so magical about that.
And I think to continue the metaphor, nature can either be your best guest or your worst guest, right? It's
That's
a
a way to
character.
describe it.
True. But even when
Absolutely.
it's terrible, there's something so fun and funny about it all.
Right. Just like that charming drunk, guest at a party. Not that any of us have those at our
Totally.
parties, but yeah, in theory. Oh my
Exactly. I
Well,
think maybe I've been that guest a few times.
yes, ma'am.
I think most of us have probably been at one
You
time or
bet.
another, right? Well,
Yeah.
speaking of drink and cocktail, so I want to touch upon something that, for a listener or a follower that might be overwhelmed a little bit by what you may have said earlier about linking the dress, linking a cocktail
Yeah.
to a dress to an event. Can you give, kind of a simple piece of advice to make that feel like it's something, really simple that you can kind of apply to really anything you host, whether it's, a large dinner party for 20, or if it's just having a couple friends over for brunch?
Oh, I absolutely think you can apply all of these ideas to any type of event that you're doing. And I am such a believer in the details, and details really, they communicate, wow, this is going to be a little different, a little bit more fun, a little bit more special, whatever it is. And I have long said the very top thing on my most important kind of party essential list is having a specialty cocktail. And that doesn't matter if you're having 3 people over,
Mhm.
20, 300. Like, there's something about thinking about, what are you going to greet your guests with? It's having a smile on your face, not being stressed out, and having a specialty cocktail, which are all so linked for me. But, I think specialty cocktails are such a great way to communicate the detail that's going to be coming forth. And does that mean you have to be spending forever mixing up some drink? Absolutely not. It's so easy to make something special either by the use of color, or the ice cubes that you use, or are you putting edible flowers in the drinks, or there's just something really fun about that. And I think it's such a great way to greet people and to really show them that they're in for kind of an interesting time based on the details that you're thinking through.
Absolutely. And it's like, basically once you pick like the color of the cocktail you're going to have, that allows you to kind of figure out what you're going to wear that will complement that well. It doesn't mean you have to be monochromatic, as long as it goes together and fits. You're
Yes.
really embodying those details you're talking about to be a good host.
Now, I do mine opposite, because, of course, when I'm designing a collection, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to serve this cocktail with this, and I'm going to do this. But yes, you can do it any way that you want.
So very chicken and egg, basically, is what you're
Yes.
saying with that. One can beget
Which
the
came
other.
first.
Exactly.
Well, and to your point about details, I think that shows that you care as a host or a hostess. It shows that you're thinking about your guests, and you're making them feel as welcome as possible. And that's my opinion of what you just shared.
Well, and I definitely am, but I'll tell you what, selfishly, I get such a kick out of coming up with fun details. And there are things that half the time you would never even notice, but I'm the most obnoxious hostess, where I'm like, oh, did you see this? Did you notice this detail? Oh my gosh, am I not genius? Like,
I love that. You're my kind of hostess, that's for sure. If you can point out those details that I may have missed, and I rarely do, I love it, because there's always more is more, in my opinion.
oh, I'm with you. More is more is more. Just keep going. Never stop.
Awesome. Well, if you have time for a couple of fun questions, one thing that we'd love to know is, what skill haven't you included on your very extensive resume that makes you unique, Lela Rose?
What skill? Huh? Well, I do love to cook. I love to mix up drinks, but you might not know I was a tap dancer in college.
That was not in
Okay,
any of the media
all right,
on you.
Lela, is there an
Amazing.
artistic medium you do not excel at? I
No
mean,
kidding.
Oh, I
sculptor,
don't.
designer,
don't.
dancer.
Oh no, I absolutely do not excel at tap dancing, but I would just go terrorize people in the grocery store, because my tap teacher told me that was the best place to practice your tap dancing, was the grocery aisles, because it was a very crisp sound.
Yeah.
Oh, how fun.
but I actually, so we have this crazy table in our New York apartment where one piece of the table comes out of the ceiling and comes down on cables and meets with two pieces of the table that come out of the floor that you sit Japanese style in, and then it links up with two other tables. So we can seat 68 people, you know, all at one long dinner table, but then it appears and disappears kind of with the push of a button. But where my tap dancing comes in is I love to tap down the big long table. And this is, of course, after a lot of tequila. And hopefully most people have gone home because my tap dancing is pretty terrible. But
Now that
I
is
still
some
like to
runway
pull
to
it out.
tap dance down.
That's genius. Well, of course, I'm getting visions of Auntie Mame with the table that comes down out of the ceiling and you hopping
Yes.
on that. It sounds pretty genius to me.
Yep. Yeah,
Now-
it's a fun table.
That sounds like a fun table. Now, another question that I have, and I think this might be a good anchoring question to kind of end with and kind of, you know, kind of for the future with your own brand is, what is your all-time favorite fashion or party look, and how have you put your own spin on it?
My favorite party look. I mean, I don't know that I've had a lot of party looks that I've loved, but I don't ever like to be too expected. So, you know, of course, I think our brand is so, you know, closely affiliated with the dress, but I love pantsuits and short suits. And, you know, I just think color, I would say color is the thing that I'm always dressed in, and generally bright colors. And I love to just ham that up as much as possible. So,
That's some really good sage advice there. And it shows that you're a Texan through and through. Because you know, we've had conversations with Bob Mackey, and he told us, like, when he was in New York, he could always tell someone was from Texas based on their love and their usage of color.
I
So,
would 100% agree with that.
absolutely.
Black
And, you know,
has never been a color, in my opinion.
yeah, it's not. And, you know, like a lot of folks in New York do like to wear black, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's definitely a distinction and a difference, you know, between the two. But color really just gives you that personality that can really kind of shine through in a way that, you know, a neutral really can't.
Agreed. And I've just always said, it's so much fun to walk into a room wearing a bright yellow dress and everyone else is dressed in more muted colors. And I just adore that. So color has been a mainstay of any collection that I've ever done forever.
Right. And that defines you, and it also defines the Lela Rose woman for whom you design. And again, Lela, congratulations a jillion times over. We're looking forward to applauding you tonight as you take the stage and earn your medal. And we're just so excited that you're a fellow Texan, and excited for all of your past, current, and upcoming success that's in the queue for you.
Oh, well, thank you all so much. It's been so much fun to get to speak with you both, and I so appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you tonight at the
All
gala.
right, looking
At the
forward to it.
awards.
See you
Same
then.
here.
Thank
Take
you
care,
all.
Lela. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
and Lela Rose's book, Fresh Air Affairs, will be available on March 7th, 2023 through multiple outlets, including lelarose.com, rizzoli.com, and fine bookstores near you. And with that, we are going to sign off. Cue it up, Lance.
I'm Lance Avery Morgan with Success with Style.
And I'm Rob Giardinelli with Fun and Fundraising, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and everyone will have a great time. Take care and have a great day, everyone.